Bad bitch jacking, riding 24s, swerving through lanes, ducking from the trolls. City of the heat, but I can make it snow. Gotta love it, it's the life I live. If you do it, then you gotta do it big.
And welcome to Urban Land Podcast. I'm Steve Gregory, your host, and this is the kickoff of season 2. I'm excited for several reasons. One, because I've learned from my experience of season 1. Hopefully, we will improve and bring you more fabulous artists. Delving into the art world worldwide. My guest today, why I'm excited for several reasons about this show in particular. He is a native of Oakland, California, my hometown. So that's a bonus. He has built his own art gallery in his backyard here in the D.C. area, which is fabulous, which is like taking the love of art to another level. So I can't wait for you to share that information with you all listening and watching now. Also, he has taken his art gallery on the road recently, and that was Art Basel 2018, correct?
Actually, we were in the Aqua Art Show, which is one of the satellite shows for Art Basel,
okay.
in December of 2017.
Okay, his name is Aaron Pomerantz, and he's just constructed a beautiful gallery in his backyard. But before we get into Aaron and art, I kind of want to talk about Aaron, the person. And for starters, talk to me about your parents briefly. Just about how were you as a child? That's what I like to get into when I have people here, just because it does show some kind of insight as to why you did what you did. Like, what was it like being a child?
Well, you mentioned we're both from the same area, Oakland, California, the Bay Area, and had a unique upbringing. I mean, it was the 1970s, and it was the first time in the country when gays were openly accepted, alternative lifestyles were accepted. And, my mother was a professor at Berkeley, and she burnt her bra
which is awesome.
At People's Park, and my father was
People's Park. Man, that's just my childhood. That's amazing. It is amazing.
So she was a philosopher. My father was a philosophy student, actually a student of hers. That's another story. And
that's how they met?
Yes.
Wow.
And that was the 60s. That was actually the 60s. So that's the 60s and 70s. It was a different time. And my father was a PhD student, and then in philosophy, and he transferred over and became a sculptor and an artist, mostly a potter at that point. But he fed the family by throwing pots and making pottery and having kiln opening parties, and he'd basically sell out from his kiln. So I grew up with the artistic vibe around me from day one, and the freedom of thought and expression from day one.
It's interesting that you, when you talked about making potteries and creating art in that form, because I had someone in my family who also did the same thing, but she was more or less, she had the oven and she had the molds, but she didn't consider herself an artist, but the work sold. So when you talked about your father taking care of the family by doing that, I believe it because that stuff does sell. I mean, I would even say it because it's more of a useful thing, I guess. Is that, you know, I mean, I guess paintings, artwork obviously sells, but I feel like maybe those, because they also have a use, they sell a lot because she actually took care of her family the same way.
I think there is something to the practicality. I mean, look, my love is art on the walls, paintings,
Right.
and the only value it has is what you see in it, as opposed to, yes, my father would make a vase or a lamp or a container for the kitchen or plates and things like that. So those actually had more of a practical use, and people who maybe wouldn't pay to have something expensive on the wall may pay to have that because it also had that interior decoration type of feel to it.
Sticking to your childhood, when did you develop a love for art as a child? Do you remember the moment you said, "Wow, I'm into this stuff"?
Actually, it was much later in life. I was the first painting I ever bought. So I had a very close friend right after I graduated college who was an artist, and I kind of caught a bug there, and I sold a couple paintings for him just by happenstance when I was 21 years old. It was my first experience in dealing art, and got a passion for art because he's one of my best friends, and it was such an important thing to him. I really delved into it, but I didn't really buy art. My first art was in probably, I'm going to say 1998, when I was walking down the street in Prague, and I walked past the gallery, saw a painting in the window, and was captivated and was broke and walked in and bought a relatively expensive painting on a credit card. And it's still in my living room today, and I love it. And so I've always enjoyed art, but I would say it's probably become a much stronger theme in my life since probably like 2000, 2002. I'm sorry. Yeah, around that time frame.
Again, you're listening to Aaron Pomerantz, the owner and creative genius behind Studio A, which is a gallery in his backyard. The friend you're referring to, the first piece of art you sold, is he still an artist?
Absolutely.
He's still an artist.
So he defined himself as an artist since he was 9 years old. He still paints every single day.
You want to share his name?
His name is Jorge Perez Rubio, and you
Perez.
can actually see some of his work at Perez-Rubio.com or at my website, studioaglobal.com. And he defined himself as an artist since he was 9 years old, and to this day he paints every single day. He also does teaches art in an international school.
Wow.
But art is the theme of his life, and he defines himself as an artist and an educator.
Wow. Moving forward just a little bit, I want to talk about, the creation of the studio, Studio A. From, I guess, the duration, how long it took, but I want to start from the idea to the design to the actual construction. Like, tell me about that process.
Sure. Well, you saw my house. I have a collection of about, I don't know, somewhere between 700 and 1,000 original pieces of artwork in my house, stacked under my bed, piled against the walls, on the walls.
You have them hidden. I didn't see that many. That's a lot.
It goes on and on and on.
Wow.
And I have a second home, and there's probably 150 to 200 pieces in that home, too, of that collection. And you get to the point, in living in a tiny little house like I do, it's really a small house, 18 feet wide, that you just don't need more art. I mean, the art, even if you love art, you don't need more because there's not enough room, and you don't need 1,000, 1,500 pieces of art just to have the art. But I have a passion for art. And so I was questioning myself, how do I continue this passion for art without just accumulating more stuff? And I had some artist friends, and kind of came to the idea is to build a space where we could highlight and promote these people I'm so passionate about, my friends, and others that maybe I would meet in the future. And so that was kind of the concept, taking my art interest from collecting to a stronger passion.
That's the idea part.
Yeah.
Let me quickly send people to your website for those of you who can multitask. If you're listening or watching, studioaglobal.com. Because you got to take a look at the gallery. It's in a container, one of these shipping containers, and I just want people to really see it all in its glory. It's beautiful, and I don't want people to think you did a shabby job. It's a wonderful gallery, so please multitask. Take a look at the website, studioaglobal.com. Now let's go from idea to design. How'd you pick a container, and tell me about that?
So I went to find an architect, who could build something. And like I said, my house is 18 feet wide. I happen to have a very long lot, and there was additional square footage that I could build on the lot, and it was 320.8 square feet of additional square footage. And with that kind of in my mind, which is a very small space, was to find somebody who had shared the excitement over what I wanted to do. And I interviewed literally 10 or 12 architects. And every architect basically said to me, well, it's going to be expensive. It's a small project, but you have to have full construction documentation. And my response
What does that mean? Explain that to me.
It means that you have to have a full set of blueprints from engineering to structural to electrical to HVAC. It means it's a lot of documentation for a little project, and you have to do the same documentation for big projects. So they're saying, hey, it's expensive. And I go, well, that's not the point. The point is I want to find somebody who's excited and passionate about this project as I am. And one morning I was in my office because I have a full-time job on top, more than a full-time job on top of running a gallery. And I was reading some articles about real estate, and I read an article about an architect who had built a container house near Catholic University. And it was interesting, and I called the guy up at 7:30 in the morning and got him on the phone. It's the only time in my whole time working with him that I ever got him on the phone. And his name is Travis Price Architects. And we connected instantly on the phone. And it wasn't about, oh, it should be a shipping container, because he just designs a lot of modern homes. And I didn't have a perception. I saw the house that he'd built, and I thought it was interesting. I thought his interview and the context he put the house into as the design was interesting. So we had a conversation, and by 10 o'clock that day, I had signed a contract with him.
Wow.
Yeah, and did not negotiate. I think I got the better end of the deal. I mean, they worked really hard because I trusted them, and it was a really great collaboration. And of course, he has a little bit of a fever for shipping containers, so he came back with that, and it worked really well. I had told you I had 320.8 square feet of additional space. Well, a shipping container is 40 feet by 8 feet, so I left 0.8 square feet on the table. So
Wow.
we took the entire lot to the maximum capacity, and I really trusted the architects. It was a phenomenal experience. It was not inexpensive. There's a lot of glass, structured glass you can walk on, things like that. As my architects say, it's the Ferrari of shipping containers.
It is. It really is. It's beautiful. So let's go from, now that's design with the architect. Now let's go to actual construction. What was that like? How long did that take? Were your neighbors upset? I mean, this is an art gallery in their neighborhood.
I don't think anybody cared about an art gallery or not. I think that, I live in a row house that's from 1918, and this was ultra modern architecture, and it was a shipping container in the backyard. And the fact is, it was a matter of right. I had a right to do it. I did not have to get anybody's permission. I didn't have to go for any variances. And I knew it would be controversial, so I really didn't say anything to anybody except that I was building something, and I was very quiet about it. And it came in, and some people, my neighbors, were really great about it. They were actually excited. They enjoy it. Some people down the street in the neighborhood were very upset, and we had a lot of controversy with the city over it. They came down and inspected us multiple times just because they were bugged so many times. But the reality was, it was a matter of right. It took about 6 or 7 months to build. The glass package was the big issue. They couldn't actually close the container until the glass came, and the glass took about, so that didn't make the neighbors happy because the thing was wrapped in plastic in the winter, blowing and shredding, and it looked terrible. So, it took about 6 or 7 months. It really should have been about a 3-month build.
Any of those people that gave you, flack about it, any of them come in and say, wow, I love it?
Some, not many.
They're still bitter.
It comes down to, it's like a perception that I did what they didn't want to do. And then if there's a passion of art, that's one thing. But if there's not a passion of art, then it's even almost like more of an annoyance back there.
Wow. Okay, so let's move into the actual shows that you do. The gallery's been finished for how long?
About 2.5 years.
Been 2.5 years. What was your first show?
My first show was with an artist from Vienna, Virginia, Paco Lane.
Paco Lane. Wow. And was it a hit? Were you instantly think I did the right thing? Have you ever questioned yourself after this? I mean, were you like, wow,
1,000 times. What did I get myself into? Not that should I have built it, but kind of like dealing art and working with artists and selling art. You're selling something that the value and the beauty is in the perception of the holder. And you're dealing with something that's really emotionally based, both for the artists who really are my focus. Like, as much as I want to sell, my real drive is I want to support artists, because artists, it's one of the hardest paths you can choose in life.
Absolutely.
And an artist can be the best artist in the world and never get recognition or support or acknowledgement for that. So
At least while they're alive.
And a lot of them after they died.
A lot of them after they died.
Correct. I mean, Vermeer was, people were buying Vermeers 300 years later in garage sales. I mean, that's literally, you never know. Once you die, it's almost moot. Then it belongs to the people who own the art. But so running the gallery, the questioning myself, it's a lot of challenges. The emotions of the artists, the egos of the personalities of the artists. You have all those challenges, just like anywhere else, maybe amplified sometimes. Unfortunately, Washington D.C. is not an art appreciation city, which I find to be a real challenge. We've had success. We've had artists. We had a show where we sold 27 pieces opening night. We've had shows where we've sold nothing. I mean, it's a learning experience, and there are some really nice highs and there are some pretty low lows. It
sounds like there's no ego in what you've done. Like, I would think, and I'm sure some of your neighbors who are upset thought, oh, he's tired of going to galleries. This is an ego trip. He just wants to bring artists to his neighborhood. But you genuinely have a strong passion for art. And again, I must say, it sounds like there's no ego in what you've done, but it's a really huge and amazing project. So you should be very proud of yourself. I love it, but it seems like there's just no ego in there. Is that accurate, or did you ever at one point say, I'm doing this because? Was there any frustration with the art world that you felt that you wanted to create your own art space?
I mean, there's ego in everything we all do. We all have ego. We've talked about Freud. Freud says you can't be a human without ego and id, right? It defines who we are. So there's always ego in everything I do, and I would say I have an ego, absolutely. And as Hannah, who's sitting over there, knows, sometimes I can have a big ego. But that being said, no, I mean, I really did this because it was a love. It was a passion. Yeah. I didn't do this because I wanted to show anybody up. I didn't do this to make any points except that this is something I love to do, and it's a passion for me. And that's what's driven me to do this. It's
I definitely feel your sincerity. I did when I was at the gallery. Do you think this concept will catch on? Do you think there'll be another pop-up somewhere?
I mean, private galleries, and I call this a private gallery. We do 3 to 5 shows a year here or somewhere else in the country. They've been around forever. What I hope is that it's a grassroots awakening. What I really want to do is I want to support these artists, and the real way to do that is to create a demand for what they do, and that's what I would love to do. Is I would love to take people on an art journey. If I can find 20 to 50 collectors who are passionate and want to go with me on a trip, we can support artists, we can have great art, we can drive prices, which is also part of art. I mean, there is a business side to it. You can't deny that. We can create valuable collections, we can create passion within the community. So that's kind of the driving force behind it.
Let's take you off the wall for a minute, away from art. Well, not totally away from art, but let's talk about your profession as a commercial real estate developer. Real estate broker, sorry. How does your passion for art play into that? Does it help? Do you find that you can tweak certain things as far as your approach to being a real estate broker? As far as art, does it come into play in your professional life?
So you can't please everybody. You just can't please everybody. And the profession I'm in is a huge amount of money in Washington, D.C., and I don't need to capture it all. I need to capture my small little segment because it's plenty. So art is just part of who I am, and I define myself, and I'm not going to connect with the guy who's going to sit there and talk about the Dodgers and the Nationals and the Redskins and about his tea time on Saturday and the golf on Friday afternoons, because that's not me. But because of who I am and my passions, I'm going to connect with other people. And so it does play it. It's part of me in defining who I am and making those connections to other people who are going to connect with me. And the people who are going to connect with me are They may be, but they're probably not going to be the guy who's talking about all those, about
Absolutely.
sports and golf and their Ferrari or whatever it may be. So
Mm-hmm.
everybody's going to have a little bit different, and it just defines who I am as somebody different than the next guy.
So naturally, it just intertwines with your life. That's a
That's
good
who
point.
I am.
Exactly.
I don't believe in this concept of work-life balance. I don't think that I have my real estate and I have my art here, and then I have my nonprofit charity work here, and then I have my projects and investments here. It's all life.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to be passionate about what I do in real estate, and I want to be passionate what I do in art, and I want to be passionate about what I do in my nonprofits. And I don't see there's any walls or barriers, and I don't see it's like one's work, one's life. It's just life.
And again, I want to encourage people to multitask. Check out his website, studioaglobal.com, studioaglobal.com. Would you say that you are the first private gallery in someone's backyard?
I have no idea.
You have no idea.
No idea. I would suspect not. There are people. There's a guy, Jack Devine, who does business around here he has a farm out in Maryland somewhere, and I've never been, but I've heard about it, and he has a private gallery, and he does mostly corporate art, but he supports artists, and everything I understand, he's just a upstanding person who loves art and has turned that passion into a profession. For me, it's not a profession at this point in my life, but I suspect not, but I guess I answered no, I'm not, because we know Jack Devine's there.
Absolutely.
Artist Circle. He's everything I've heard about him.
I know Artist Circle. I know that he's a really great guy, and his place is phenomenal. His studio is phenomenal. I've been there. Let me ask you this: as far as California, I have to get my California listeners a love. Do you ever consider moving back and maybe doing something like that in Oakland, because it's a huge art boom in Oakland and the Bay Area in particular? You ever consider taking your show on the road to the Bay?
I would consider maybe doing an art fair or something like that. I've been in Washington, D.C. for 20 years, and I've built a real nice life here and really strong roots. And the business I do in my other life than art is very much ingrained in this community. I'm from Bolinas, California, a long time ago, grew up, and the whole Bay Area, but I lived in Bolinas for a long time. And that's the kind of place I could see going to retire. I don't know if I can afford it anymore. But
Absolutely. Yeah, it's pretty expensive.
Yeah.
I wanted to fast forward again to your actual exhibits. Tell me about the ones that you were like, wow, really blown away from. And you don't have to get into particulars as far as some you were disappointed in, but just tell me about the most successful art exhibit you've had.
All right, so I am a supporter and am 100%. So one of my rules about what I do, because it's not how I make a living, it's my passion. And because I'm not relying on the income from it, I have a little bit different rules than if I were in a gallery and needed to pay the rent and pay the employees. And this goes back to, this will answer your question. So I have two rules about the art, about this art gallery. One is I have to love the art, and two is I have to be connected to the artist. I have to have that passion about both of them, because I don't have time to deal with art that I don't believe in, or frankly assholes I don't want to work with. Can I say that on this?
Yes, you can.
Perfect.
And listen, someone who's given art shows and installed art for a lot of artists, they can be challenging.
So and they are challenging in their own ways, but I'm challenging too, and you're challenging.
Absolutely.
And Hannah's really challenging sometimes.
Absolutely.
But the whole point of this is, going back to your question, is I haven't put up a show that I haven't believed in and not been enthusiastic about. I have been very pleased. I've stood behind every show 100%, and I've loved the art, and I've been passionate about it. Now, are they commercially successful? That's a totally different question. Some shows, some artists are more commercially successful than others. I work with one artist, Josh Wingartner, and I think you saw his stuff yesterday. Actually, almost all that's come down today because we're preparing for the next show. He is a commercial success. His first show, we sold 27 paintings. We did in Aqua Art Show in Miami in December. We had a very wealthy individual come in to buy 20 of his paintings off the wall, a whole set that we had hung.
Wow.
I sell a painting almost every week for him. Other artists, I've been working with them for 5-10 years even, because I've futzed with this before. and I've almost sold nothing. So it's really frustrating. But as far as the shows go, there's not a show that I wouldn't say I was really proud of and stand behind.
We're going to take a short break, but I wanted to ask you this first. As far as learning, what have you learned from this whole experience?
A lot. I mean, that's like a deep question, and it needs some reflection to really answer. But I've learned that doing business with friends can be really challenging. I've learned that following your heart is always the right thing to do. Or let me say this is an affirmation. That following your heart is the right thing to do. Nothing pays off like hard work.
Would you do it again?
Absolutely.
Okay. We're going to take a short break. Again, I'm Steve Gregory. This is Urban Lens, the art podcast. Joining me is Aaron Pomerantz, and I'm super excited to have him. We're going to talk more about his gallery. Please check out the website now, studioaglobal.com. We'll be back shortly. Thanks.
In the rain, mouth full of gold, pockets on swole. Bad bitch jacking, riding 24s, swerving through lanes, ducking from the troll. City of the heat, but I can make it snow. Gotta love it, it's the life I live. If you do it, then you gotta do it big. Bad bitch jacking, riding 24s, swerving through lanes, ducking from the
And welcome back. This is Urban Lens, the art podcast. I'm Steve Gregory, your host. Again, joining me is, I'm going to call him Oakland native just because I'm claiming him, Aaron Pomerantz, the owner of Studio A. The website is studioaglobal.com. Please check it out. I encourage you to do that. Our super producer, Jay, just looked up the fact that he does have the only container art gallery in America, and I'm going to say in the world. I'm just going to put that out there. So I'm happy to have that featured here on this program, definitely. And his passion for art, I would say, is unmatched. Definitely unmatched. I don't, it's something that it shows just in the construction. You talked about the, just again, from the design to the construction to the flack you got from your neighbors. That takes passion to endure all that. I mean, I commend you for that.
The flack from the neighbors didn't bother me
Didn't
at all.
bother you?
It's like Teflon. And by the way, I am an Oakland native because that's where I was born.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm going to claim you. I know that. You're born in the same hospital my mother worked in for 25 years. Yeah. And that's Oakland Kaiser.
Yes.
Let's talk about your upcoming show in this last segment. Let's get that out of the way first. Trojan Horse Farm, right?
Yep.
What is that about? Who's the artist and what is
So
that
the
about?
artist is Rick Bach, and he's a mid-career, 50-year-old fantastic artist who's unusual. It's a little bit edgy. He's once again like a lot of the artists I work with. They've defined themselves as artists since they were little kids. So he's been an artist for the last 45 years of his life, and this is a big show for him. He hasn't shown in about 2 years. He's pretty well known in Pittsburgh, where he's a Pittsburgh native, but he lives in Washington now. He's got a studio here, but does a lot of work and spends a lot of time up with his family in Pittsburgh. And it's going to be paintings on aluminum, paintings on paper, and wood and metal sculptures, including some outdoor sculptures that are made of Corten steel. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's a steel. It's the steel that shipping containers are made out of. And so what it is it's a steel alloy that they've mixed. And so when it rusts, it only rusts on the surface, and that rust actually forms a patina that's beautiful, but it protects the steel, so it never rust through. So it actually preserves it. So they have this great patina, and you've probably seen a lot of sculptures that you didn't realize were out of that. So it's going to be outdoor, indoors. It's going to be little pieces, big pieces. It's very edgy. I would say in the past.
When you say edgy, you keep saying that. What does that mean? Give me a little bit of the edge. What is the edge?
He paints a lot of times himself with devil's horns and hair going out and skulls, and he's got a little bit of a dark side to him. Absolutely. But this is, different folks, different strokes. Like, we want a lot of people to come. We don't, if you have a lot of people there, you'll find the right few people, hopefully, who want to buy it and are passionate about it. And everybody else will have an argument and a discussion, and that's part of the experience of going to a gallery opening.
Absolutely.
Is you can't please everybody.
Absolutely. Have you ever considered, and we will talk about that again on your upcoming show before the show ends, have you ever considered featuring artists from outside of the area?
Oh, absolutely. So one of the artists I work with, the guy who I've known since I was 21 years old, I mentioned before, he lives in Qingdao, China.
Wow.
So Josh Wingartner, who you've shown some pictures on in between the show, who you saw the pieces in the gallery recently, he's from New Orleans. So I'm not looking for artists. I'm focused on art, and it's creating a synergy and opportunities.
Absolutely.
And so each year, the goal is to build a relationship with another artist or two.
Absolutely. And so Jay also mentioned that he actually saw your episode on Home and Garden Television, HGTV, and the show was called Home. What was it called?
I believe it's called Shipping Container Homes.
Shipping Container Homes.
Episode 5.
Episode 5. I want everyone to please go to Comcast. You can get it on demand, correct?
Correct.
Shipping Container Homes. Please check out Aaron Pomeranz Gallery Studio A on HGTV. I wanted to ask you, what was that experience like? The television show.
I didn't really want to do it. I had no interest in doing it. My architect really wanted it. And so, if you have an architect, so it was a firm. So there was Travis Price, who's the name on the firm. But
he's the architect, correct?
He's the architect, and his partner and the person who really ran the day-to-day was a woman named Kelly Davies. And she really wanted it. And part of a successful project is a little bit quid pro quo. So if she wanted it, I would do it because it makes her happy and makes the project more successful when everybody's there. So I was a little bit questionable about it. It turned out good. I mean, it was a nice, clean story. It was a lot of fun to have people around filming when you're pulling up a massive crane into your tiny little alley and asking people to move cars and lifting up a shipping container and dropping it in. So it was exciting. It was fun. It wasn't a big deal to me.
Were you actually in the episode?
Yes.
Oh, great.
And my wife, who did not.
Oh, wow. Wow. Great. So as far as the future, where do you see yourself going with this in the future?
I have no idea.
You have no idea.
I have no idea. It's a passion. And so I'm continuing to work with artists and meet new artists. Like this show with Rick, we met about a year and a half ago. It's been a year in the making. It's a new show, a new artist, and we'll just keep growing. I don't want to be a big gallery owner. That's not my desire. I don't want to be in the retail business. I want to help artists be successful. And that's what really my passion is. And having a place to show and showing artists seems to be what I'm doing right now as part of that. And I don't know where that's going to take me. So I'm just kind of following the road. I don't have a business plan.
Do you see art ever pulling you away from being a commercial real estate broker?
Maybe. I mean, right now I've got so many commitments in my life that I know where my bread is buttered.
Absolutely.
I know how I have to pay to take care of family and all those commitments. And maybe that will change someday. Look, I will tell you this. If I was 24 years old, screw commercial real estate, I would be off in the art business. And I could do really well at it. And I could be very successful at it. But that's not where I am. So it's an experience for me, and we'll see where it goes.
We talked about your learning curve as far as this entire gallery. I want to talk about the actual installation process, because that's a whole nother monster in itself that people kind of take for granted when they go to galleries or museums and they see work hanging. It's a beast. It really is a challenge. How was that as far as your first installation? Do you recall that? Has a picture fallen off the wall? Do you have any?
I've never had a picture fall off the wall. It's 320 square feet, so it's not as big a chore as it might be if you were, Gagosian galleries in New York with 18,000 square feet to fill with 40-foot high walls and warehouse space. So I also have the fortune of having some people who share this passion with me who've gotten involved, and one of those people is a designer who does a lot of AutoCAD. So she works with me, and we'll usually curate the show together and lay it out so that when we go to hang it up, literally we're working off the drawings and measuring it out inch by inch. But every show is different. I mean, I've had artists who I've trusted enough that want to curate it themselves, and they have a vision too, and it's their story. I'm not their. I'm helping them. I'm curating with them, but if they have a strong vision, I'll work with them to convey that vision. So I've had artists who basically told me to step back and they'll design it, and I've hung it. And the hanging of it, what I find is it takes about 2 hangings to 3 hangings to do it, and I like to have at least 2 bottles of whiskey for that process. And when your hands start to shake and your vision goes away, you stop and you come back the next day.
Absolutely. Now, one of the problems with installation work is patching. And obviously, since you have a small space, and do you repatch everything after every show? How is that process?
So, do you know Mr. Clean sponges with the little, the little white sponges? Those things are friggin' awesome. So what I do is typically when I take the show down, we'll take the show down, and then we will go through, and it's a white wall, and we'll touch up, spackle all the holes, and the holes are small because I'm using the professional hanging nails that are very thin. And then I will go over and sponge that down so it's completely smooth. And then I'll go through with my Mr. Clean sponges and scrub them down. That you can do about 2 to 4 shows, depending what the shows are. And then you need to repaint. So I actually find it's pretty manageable because I'm not doing a show every 3 to 4 weeks. I'm doing a show every quarter. I can let a show be up for 2 months and then have a month to 3 weeks to kind of take it down, clean the gallery. The biggest problem I have right now in my life is storage. I mean, there's a lot of art. In addition to all my personal collection, I now have a huge number of paintings by the show I'm taking down today. There were about 85 pieces in it, and there's probably 35 to 40 pieces left just from this one show. One of them, the Obama you saw, which is stunning,
which is the one that I want,
is 4 feet by 5 feet. I mean, so that's my biggest challenge, actually.
That one won't be on your hands too long, I'm hoping. I wanted to ask you, as far as, again, dealing with the installation work, what I found challenging, and as far as art, me being a guest curator in galleries, is that the challenge is they're booked so far in advance. I mean, you can literally go to a gallery and, I'm booked all the way to 2019, but I do have May in 2020, or I do. So how far ahead are you as far as you're planning your shows? Like, where are you in 2020 right now?
I'm typically a year ahead.
You're a year ahead?
What I will say is we did our Basel this year, or the Aqua Art Show, and it took such an amount of energy for such a long time. And it was, I got really sick afterwards, just draining beyond belief.
Right.
And so I took kind of a hiatus for about 10 weeks from art, completely. Just it was so draining. So we have one more show this year, so we're not super booked. A lot of it has to do with the fact that I'm my own little gallery,
right,
and I don't have a staff, and I don't have a curatorial staff, so I'm not booked out to 2020. And it's a little bit more organic where I am. I mean, that would not be a bad problem to have, but I'm not there.
If you had a criticism of the art world, and believe me, many people in the art business critique the art world as far as issues when it comes to the money part of it, the fact that artists aren't really recognized until they passed away so many times. What would your criticism of the art world be as a gallery owner, if any?
Yeah, no. So I don't know if it's a criticism. I mean, look, art is a business.
Mm-hmm.
It's an unusual business because there is that very hard business fact about it. It's business, and people play hardball, and people play games, and there's a lot of dubiousness going on in the business, but it's also in a business of emotion. So it's just like any other business. It's a business. I think that the hardest thing is I think that the art fair business is really driving things away from the ability. When you go do an art fair, and that's really where the art world is going now. Everything I understand is 60 to 70% of your sales are at these art fairs, and you have to be there to drive sales, and that's where the business is going. I think that leads itself away from being adventurous and discovering new talent, because you've got to make money. I mean, if you do Art Basel, which is in the convention center, you're talking $300,000 to $400,000 for a major gallery. That's just to get to the show. You have to sell. You do 2 or 3 shows like that, and you don't sell, you're out of business. So
right, which limits the small artists, right? Which limits artists is not that pop. The breaking into artists kind of limits them, right?
It limits them. It limits the opportunity to be adventurous, and but the reality of it is, it's a business like anywhere else, and to run my gallery, I can't continually lose money. I've got to make enough to hopefully cover my expenses. So it's a business. I mean. And it's an odd business because the value of what you have hanging on the wall, it's a really hard thing to assign that. So that's like my kind of learning right now, is understanding how do you assign value, and how do you get what I assign value to, how do I get you to assign that value to it? Or Hannah, because we're going to sell Hannah some really expensive art.
Absolutely. I wanted to ask you, what gives you more of a thrill? Like what makes Aaron excited? Closing a huge deal as far as commercial real estate, or just having a smash, super successful art opening?
Yes. They're both great. Like I said, there's no separateness in life. Mm-hmm. I have a lot of passion in what I do in my commercial real estate, and I think I make a huge difference to a lot of people and have impact on a lot of people, and that's a wonderful thing. And I think I make people's lives a lot better in what I do in my niche of real estate. And I think I do the same thing in art. I mean, they're both great things. I feel like I have a very rich, fortunate life. You do.
You really do. And I love the work you're doing. Before we wrap up, I want to ask you about some of your top artists. Who do you love?
Who do I love? I mean, look, when I was a kid, I loved Van Gogh and Picasso. Mm-hmm. We talked earlier yesterday. One of the most inspiring artists to me, because he stayed relevant for so long, is David Hockney.
Absolutely.
And that he's been able to continue to paint and move with technology in his 70s and 80s and be relevant for 40, 50, 60 years. I think that's fantastic. He really drives me to an excitement when I see his work. There's not much I don't love. I mean, who else? I'm just trying. You're putting me on the spot there. I love my friends.
If there's a piece that you don't have, that you want, and you can't get it, but you want it, what piece is that?
I mean, there's a million pieces I desire. Right? We all have desire. Mm-hmm. You're putting me on the spot here.
Because you talk about, the one thing that I noticed about yesterday when you were touring me through your gallery and the artwork in your home is that you talked a lot about, when I saw that piece, I knew it had to be mine. When I saw that piece, I was in love with it. I saw that it was the only piece that stood out to me across the room. That happens to me a lot. It happens to any art lover. When you walk into a room, that piece stands, you got to have it, or you just got to go see it and you want that piece. Is there a piece out there that you can't have that you felt that way about?
All the time, man.
All the time?
I mean, I fall in love with, there's so much beautiful art and there's so many qualified art. I mean, I was just down at the National Gallery. Mm-hmm. And not that I want it, but, there are just so many great pieces in the East Wing, the modern wing there, that the Caldor is upstairs. That giant blue chicken on the roof, that thing's cool. I'd love to have that in my backyard.
Oh, your neighbors would not like that.
Who cares? There are so many pieces of beautiful art out there, and I would just encourage people to go out and enjoy it. And I can appreciate art and not desire it too. I mean, I can go to a museum and go see Rembrandts who I love. And I don't want a giant 10-foot high, 20-foot wide Rembrandt in my home, but just the experience of seeing beautiful art. And then you want it, and then you walk on to the next thing, all right, it's out. I think that my desire for art, to the large extent, is tied to the context of being in a gallery where it's available. I don't want a Van Gogh. I don't go to the Van Gogh Museum or a Rothko. In the Rothko room, they're beautiful to see, but I don't have that desire.
Right.
So
Again, his website is studioaglobal.com. Please check out his website. See the artwork. His upcoming show is Trojan Horse Farm.
April 14th.
April 14th. That's the opening. So your gallery is by appointment only after the opening, correct?
Correct. We do the openings. Open by invitation, but they're pretty liberal about that. We hand out invitations, and friends can bring friends, and so forth and so on. And you can find out the information on the website about that.
And they can make appointments to meet you at the gallery
Anytime
via
you
website?
Want. Anytime you want, whenever there's a show hanging. And we also do a lot of art consulting. I've started working with people who have specific art projects and helping them select and acquire art. It's been something else I've been doing. It's been an interesting experience recently.
Wow. Do you sleep?
Yeah. Sure.
You do sleep?
A little bit, yeah.
You talked about you get 400 emails now. I can imagine. What about as far as artists reaching out to you to get into your gallery?
I get it all the time, and because I get 400 to 600 emails a day, and because I'm doing all these other things, it's probably one of the things I'm most negligent in. I just cannot respond to every email I get every day. So sometimes I respond, sometimes not. I think it's that organic thing in life that you can only do what you want to do, and the right artists come, and I'll have that right response, and I'll go connect with them. So it's pretty organic.
Again, this is Aaron Pomerantz, owner of the only container gallery in someone's backyard, which it doesn't even look like a container any longer. I mean, it does not. I didn't see container. Maybe on the outside, it does not feel like a container once you walk in, even in your backyard. It feels like just a beautiful little gallery back there.
But one of the flips that I will say about that is the nice thing about the way the gallery was designed is it is stunningly beautiful, but it doesn't overpower the art. It is really designed to highlight the art, and the way the walls undulate back and forth is specifically designed so that you can have separate breathing space for each piece of art. So it's very cool and neat, but it's also a little bit of a blank canvas that you can put the art into, and the art can have the power.
Do you mind sharing with the audience something about the nonprofit work you do?
So I'm on the board of directors of the Latin American Youth Center, which is not too far from here, and they work with about 4,000 youth in the Washington, D.C., Prince George's County, and Montgomery County regions, and they really make a difference for a lot of people, and a lot of people who are at risk have been brought through high school and had real success, and we make a real difference in the community. So I help them with their real estate, I help them with business decisions. I've worked on board of director issues and executive searches, all kinds of things. I put real time into it, and then have made some really beautiful friendships, and I feel like I've made a real difference in the community through it.
How do you, and this will be the last question closing, how do you feel about the fanfare that you're getting and the admiration of, wow, that's Aaron, he owns the gallery. I know that comes with the territory. How do you feel about that?
I have no idea if that's going on or not.
You don't think so? You've been
I
on
think
it.
a lot of people
I haven't been featured on HGTV.
I think a lot of people think I'm really out there.
They do?
Absolutely. I mean, yeah. I think that there are a lot of people who think I'm just a weird guy. Because in my world, a lot of people are like, why would you put a gallery?
Yeah.
Why aren't you at a country club? I don't know. I've never been aware of that.
Studio A is the gallery, Upper Northwest, Washington, D.C., by appointment only. Log on to studioaglobal.com. This is Aaron Pomerantz. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Amazing.
Man.
Thank you very much. All right, we'll be back next time with another episode of Urban Lindsay Art Podcast. I do have a photographer coming up next, and she is fabulous, Lark Pics. Looking forward to that. So please stay tuned. Keep it locked right here. Thank you, Listen Vision. Thank you, Hannah Hoffman, the Hoffmaster. And, of course, Jay, thank you very much.
Thank you.